all to another edition of Counterpoint. I'm Cornel Bogdan for Armstrong, and our first ever live studio audience for an interview show. And what is Counterpoint? I have no idea. It's one of those shows that is really tough to describe, but I get to talk to a lot of friends of mine in the music field, find out what they're doing, what they're up to. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and we have a nice studio audience here from my compadres at 93.3 The Wolf. Go ahead and give yourself a round of applause. And welcome to the stage here, Mr. Michael Stanley. Michael, welcome.
Nice to be with you, Cornel.
I'm going to start off the show tonight by reading something that a music critic by the name of Dean Sciarra wrote. And Dean writes, like fine wine, great rock songs get better with time if they truly were great to begin with. The same can be said far too infrequently of rock stars. That is except for Michael Stanley, as he releases his best album to date with Just Another Night. I don't know where all this angst and insight came from this late in life, but it sure feels good to me. Song after song, he comes out of the gate ahead of where the odds makers would put him as he slams your speakers with truly classic rock and some heart-wrenching ballads. God bless Michael Stanley. Woo!
You know, I'm not a yes man, but I totally agree with Dean on that.
This is the CD. Michael was nice enough, and granted, our budget is a lot less here with Armstrong than Oprah's, but Michael was nice enough to give everybody a copy of Just Another Night, and they have that in their possession right now. Michael, where did the angst come from? What is going on here?
I think that the songs that he's referring to, the ones that are a little cryptic or a little... I don't know what you say, possessed. I think they came from what's been going on in this country for the last 8 years, and it isn't pretty. It hasn't been pretty, and as we're all finding out now, we're reaping the non-rewards of what's gone on, politically and economically and everything else. And I just thought it was a really depressing time that way. I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel, and it was just sort of. The whole thing that there was nobody was being accountable, and I think when you're on the radio, when I'm doing a show, when you're at your job out there, whatever it is that you do, more than likely you're accountable. You don't do what you're supposed to do, you're going to hear about it, or you're going to lose your job, or you're going to have to make some changes, and that wasn't happening on a national level, and it was for lack of a better phrase, it was pissing me off.
Do you consider yourself a political individual?
Yes, I do. I mean, and I think that's a lot of that has to do with how old I am and where how I grew up. And when I went to college, the middle of my college career was 1968, which was probably the most pivotal year that you could have as far as politically. Everything changed then. Obviously, it was Vietnam was raging and all sorts of things were going on. And I was pretty much involved in all that. Now, am I going to go out and carry signs everywhere and things? No. It's more like I've chosen to, sort of catalog my feelings about things musically over the years. You can't do that 100% of the time, and I'm not interested in doing it 100% of the time. But as an artist, I think, you owe it to your listeners to be honest with them about what you're thinking about, whether it's about a romantic relationship or whether it's about a political situation.
Well, I've said this to you when we've talked on the phone. The writing on this record is just phenomenal.
Thank you.
And I really, really hope that you guys sit down and listen to this from beginning to end, because you are going to hear a true singer-songwriter at his best. Your voice is wonderful, and the lyrics, we'll start off with Just Another Night in America. Where are you going to look to find another kind of ending, and what you going to try that won't be just another mistake? You ain't going to break, but you're so damn tired of bending. Whew.
Exactly. I mean, it's the thing of we're all on this boat together. It's gonna remain afloat or it's gonna sink, and it's a lot has to do with how we react to things. And I think part of the problem is that so many things seem out of the control of the individual. And but nothing gets changed, no matter what way you want to change it. I don't care if you're coming from the left or the right. Nothing gets changed unless it's from a bottom-up situation, a grassroots situation. And I think the last election kind of showed that.
Give them a little bit of the song. When you were sitting down writing this, when you were making a demo, what did it sound like when you were playing it for your band?
Maddie's on the move tonight, making his way through the old neighborhood, racing the morning light, wishing that he sure could use a cold one, that he sure could use some sleep, wondering why the memories that haunt him are the ones you never keep. Making his way down a dead-end street, all the houses the same, they just seem to fade into one as they break in the heat. And every house has got its story, and every story's got its start. Every start leads to an ending, and most endings fall apart. Another night in America, just another night in the land of hopes and dreams. Just another night in America, living through another day, trying not to fade away.
That?
I think that the whole gist of this album, in the last few albums, I've tried to make them sort of thematic. And the one of this was, I just sort of wanted to look at one night in the country, all the different things that were going on. They didn't have to, they weren't political. There's only about 2 songs on there that deal with that. The others were relationships and this and that. And I don't know if you're like me, but usually once a year, I take a sort of a pilgrimage and I drive around to all the places I used to live, see how they've changed, kind of get a feeling of, what the journey's been all about. And a lot of it actually is tied up with this area here. My parents are both from the Youngstown area. My dad's from East Palestine. My mom's from East Liverpool. I got relatives in Hubbard and Girard and all over the place. And so I'm kind of tied to this whole thing. And it's you come back here and you see what has happened to Youngstown. You see what has happened to Cleveland and Akron and Canton and all the other Rust Belt cities. And it's sort of, they're sort of the forgotten bunch, from Buffalo on up through Detroit and this and that. But these are the cities that, that were the backbone of everything, that forged the whole Industrial Revolution thing and built this country up. And now it's kind of, they're kind of the wasteland, kind of forgotten. And hopefully, there'll be some things that in the future which will bring them back to life.
And an artist like yourself, you kind of speak for all of us, because when you're angry, that's good.
Well, not everybody agrees with that type of stuff, but you figure if it's something that's affecting you, that it's probably affecting a bunch of other people, and hopefully those are the ones. It's not always good to preach to the choir too. You got to maybe you can change a few minds by something you say and this and that. This song, the title song, "Just Another Night in America," is basically about the thing of feeling pretty helpless about the situation.
There's a tune on the record called "Winter," which is one of the next to the last songs, and it is an epic. It starts off acoustically, and then you build, and then you build, and then you build. Is that the way you wrote it? Or when you got to the studio, did it take on a mind of its own?
It started as the front part, which was the part with the lyrics, and the part that's the more acoustic part. And then I realized it was going to take a turn here, and I wanted to get something that was very orchestral, very huge, very complete opposite of the front of the song. Like we did it at the House of Blues shows over the holidays. That was the first time that we played the song, and it was one that, it's really weird because it goes from the quietest thing that we do,
very quiet,
to far and away the loudest thing and most powerful thing we do. And it's about 9 minutes long, you know, and you're asking somebody to invest 9 minutes of time in it, and but it's just the way it seemed to you know, fit what I was looking for. The nice thing about not having a major record label, or being the owner of your own record label at this point, which so many people are these days, is you could do what you want.
Right.
You know, you don't have somebody saying, well, you need a single, or you need this, or you need that.
Hey, Michael, no 9-minute songs
Yeah,
on
I
here.
mean, a 9-minute song is like, you know, it's death as far as radio is concerned, and that sort of thing. But at the same time, I saw that, you know, from the feedback I got over the internet and from fans and emails and things, that it was one of the ones that, you know, struck the biggest chord with people. So,
how did you write it? What did it sound like when you're sitting at home putting this together?
It's funny, the music has been around for a while. It actually was another song, which I wasn't really happy with lyrically. And so it never made it onto the last couple albums. And I sort of liked the whole feel of the thing, which was going back to my folk roots, you know, which some people like when
people compared you to Dan Fogelberg. I love that.
Dan Fogelberg without the bank account. That's
the early days. The next Dan Fogelberg. But anyway, here's what Winter sounds like.
I'm a man of good intentions, but that and a dime won't get you anything hardly worth your time. And I've had my share of lovers, drove that train right off the track. I broke some hearts along the way and broke them right back. Seems like subtlety and nuance might just as well be dead. Traded for a moment in the spotlight overhead. And those windmills I've been chasing, well, they vanish all too soon and leave a leather jacket lunatic howling at the moon, at the moon. And I wish that this sunset was slower. Wish I could find just one more song. And I'm hoping that today it ain't too late to pray, 'cause it feels like winter's coming on. Feels like winter's coming on, coming on.
That is called Winter. And it just...
Thank you.
It just builds. It just builds and builds and layers and layers. And did you do that live in the studio?
No, it was pretty much put together piece by piece. And it was sort of like, try this, see if that works. Try that, take it off, put it back on, this sort of thing. If you haven't heard the record, it's kind of hard to explain, but it really is. It's just sort of a. It's the feeling I wanted to get. The whole song, obviously, anybody who lives around here, grew up around here, you can identify with "Winter's Coming On," and you know, not only just as a normal thing, but it was a thing too. I mean, I'm going to be 61 next month, and you know. I'm kind of into winter here.
It's
you know?
hard for me to believe that Michael Stanley is going to be 61 years old.
Think how hard it is for me to believe.
Yeah. And let's talk about that, because 1991, December 1991 to be exact, you had a major change in your life. You were on vacation in Las Vegas. Take it from there.
Yeah, I had what they call a coronary event, which is a really nice way of saying a heart attack. And I remember lying on the floor in the Elvis suite of the Las Vegas Hilton, which I thought was pretty apropos.
Well, if you're going to have a heart attack, you might as well have it in the Elvis suite of the Hilton.
If you got to do that, you got to do it.
And Michael, I get a phone call from your manager, Mike Balkan, and he says to me, Cornel, Michael Stanley had a heart attack. And I'm like, punchline? Come on.
Yeah.
What's next?
So play his record, boy.
Yeah, and then he went on to describe that no, you were actually down for the count. So you're laying on the floor in the Elvis suite of Las Vegas Hilton.
Yeah, after, it's all the things that they tell you, but you never think about till they happen. That one about, oh yeah, there's that pain going down the left arm. Here's the this. And you start sweating like Robert Hayes in Airplane. Just like. Like it's like you're in a shower. And next thing I know, I can remember. Maybe this is too much information for you, but at the time that it happened, I was, butt naked, and I remember thinking to myself, "They're going to be hauling my ass through the hotel here. I got to get something on here." And I made it and got a bathrobe on. The next thing I remember, I'm on the floor, and there's all sorts of EMS guys and everything around me, and I'm thinking, this is supposed to be happening to Keith Richards. It's not supposed to be happening to me.
Right.
And I was very lucky because it was a major heart attack and shouldn't have probably lived through it. I got the exact right care at the right time, and and we're here to talk about it today.
But Elvis was shining down a little bit, I think, because after that, people say that you really changed and you just started writing like you've never written before.
Well, like I said, you realize there's sort of a finite amount of time. When you're 19 or you're 21 or whatever, you start doing this, you're thinking, no, I can do whatever I want. This is going to go on forever, or it's only going to go on for a couple of years, and then I'll go back to real life. But this far down the line, this is, I think, the 25th album that I've done or been involved in. You're going, well, that's pretty wild. But you're closer to the end of the tunnel than the beginning of the tunnel.
Right,
so if there's things you want to do, and things you want to say, and that certainly applies to anything, not just music. You just got to realize, you better take care of business now. I wrote a song back on the album called The Ground, which came out sometime after 9/11, and I wrote a song called My Last Day on Earth. And that was basically the thing about it. My mother was always really upset because she said, that's just a terrible title. That's just such a downer title. And it was like, my mother wouldn't say downer. She doesn't even know what that means. But I said, no, it's a real hopeful thing, Mom. It's a thing about, you've got to take care of business now. Don't wait around for next month or next week. And if anything, that's what the heart attack, showed me, that there's things to get upset about, there's things to not get upset about. And if you've got something you want to do or you want to say, then you better get on the stick and take care of it.
Amen to that. Amen. Let's go back over the years. Let's talk a little bit about the Michael Stanley Band. In fact, let's talk a lot about the Michael Stanley Band. Folks, the band's greatest achievement, and listen to this number, 74,404 during a 4-night stand at Blossom Music Center, August 25th, 26th, August 30th, 31st, 1982, still to this day, the attendance record at Blossom Music Center. And I don't think...
Hey, we had a good time, didn't we?
You know something? That's not Jimmy Buffett. That's not AC/DC. That's not Dave Matthews. That's the Michael Stanley Band in 1982.
We were really lucky because we set the attendance record at the old Cleveland Agora.
Yes.
We set it at
the Richfield
Coliseum at the Front Row Theater. And they've all been torn down, so we keep those records because no one can do that anymore.
And whose attendance record did you beat at the Richfield Coliseum? Do you know that?
I do not know that. Who is
Led Zeppelin.
Those guys.
Yeah, those guys. So, and let's talk about, you have some of the greatest quotes over the years about the Michael Stanley Band, America's most successful, unsuccessful band.
Yeah, I really think that. I mean, how many bands that were not household names got to put out 13 albums?
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was always that somebody at 3 or 4 different record companies felt that this was going to happen,
Right.
And we got, we got close to it really happening a couple times, especially with the Heartland album and with You Can't Fight Fashion. But never quite made it over that, into that household name situation. But to be able to do 13 albums, I mean, when you start, especially back then, you're just glad to make an album. I mean, really, when I made my first album with a band back in 1968, I didn't care at all if anybody bought it. I just wanted to hold it in my hands. It was like you had done this. This is what you set out to do. You made a record. I heard it on the radio the first time, and that I could have died and gone to heaven right then. It was like, but to make this, no one looked at it as being a career. or anything else like that.
Well, that's what I'm going to make you go back now and play some parts out of my favorite Michael Stanley song. And let's see, 1972 from the Michael Stanley record, and it's called Rosewood Bitters. And to this day, it is my favorite song that you have ever written. Tell me a little bit about where you were at in your life, and where did those lyrics come from? And
Rosewood's a funny song because it's the song I've been doing the longest. It's also a song that I have to have the lyrics on the floor in front of me every show I do, which makes no sense because I've been doing this song. I just have a mental block on what verse goes where. It's like I can remember scoffing at Aerosmith. We were opening for them on a tour, and that Steven Tyler had the lyrics written all over the entire stage. This was during their somewhat
hazy period.
Astral traveling period. But,
yes, good way to put it, hazy.
And I kept thinking, like, well, you can't remember the words to your songs, this sort of thing. And now that we're at that point, it's okay. But I don't remember why I wrote the song.
Okay.
I mean, I remember writing it and thinking, oh, this is a cool song. And but the thing has taken on a life of its own over the years. And to be completely honest with you, I've never quite figured out why everybody likes the song as much as they do. They seem to like it more than I do.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's not that I don't like it. At one point, I kind of lost the feeling of why I wrote this song or any connection with it, and I stopped doing it for like 3 years.
Okay.
And people were incensed. They were like, hey, dude.
What are you doing, man?
Yeah, we paid the money. Play the song,
Yeah.
And I started back doing it just as an acoustic thing with Jennifer Lee, who sings with the band. And that kind of got me back into the song again. And then after a couple years of doing that, the band came to me and they said, like, hey, we want to play on this, It's like, why? Oh, because we really like it. So they got all back into it, and now it's all back in good shape. But it's one of those ones that, I'm glad, believe me, I'm totally glad that everybody likes it, or most people like it. But I never could quite put my finger on why they liked it,
Well, can you take us back to 1972 for a second?
Sure can. With this cold, my voice is almost as nasally as it was back then, too. Too long on the road, my friend. Too long between rides. Too long between homes again. Too long without someone by my side. Lord, something about a sad song helps to ease the pain. Here I am, Lord, just singing up a storm. And I'm all alone again. And the rosewood bitters help me meet the sunshine in the morning. And the rosewood bitters help me through the night when I feel blue. Thank you.
I think the lyric in the song that everybody relates to and which you don't realize why people love it, to me anyway, it's there's something about a sad song that helps you ease the pain.
Well, that was the whole concept.
Everybody can relate to that. Everyone can relate to that.
People always ask me, like, what's it about? And I said, it's about the therapeutic value of sad songs.
Yes.
A lot of people go, oh, I don't want to hear that sad song. It's like, I find them, comforting.
Right, right.
I find them comforting when I am sad because I go, oh, that guy's just as sad as I am, And I find them comforting when I'm not sad because I go, oh man, he's bummed out. I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm feeling good about this right now.
Yeah. And there's something about when you sing that song, Michael, it gets the chill factor happening, you know? And another one is, this is what, 1973? I hope you can get this, Greg. I don't know if you can, but this is called Friends and Legends. And there is another epic tune on here. We were talking about winter, but there is a song off of here called Let's Get the Show on the Road. And my goodness, every time you play it acoustically, you play it with the band, that song has got a lot of miles on it, Michael.
Yeah, that one does. That was a fun album to make because, first of all, I was blessed with having a great band put together for me by my producer Bill Simzik.
Yeah, tell everybody who the band was on this record right here.
Well, I got lucky because both bands were in between tours, so I got half of Joe Walsh's Barnstorm with Joe Walsh and the rhythm section of Joe Vitale and Kenny Passarelli. And I got the rest of the guys from Stephen Still's Manassas, Paul Harris on piano, Joe Lala on percussion. And then just to make it even better, we threw in David Sanborn later on in the situation. And Richie Furay from Buffalo Springfield and Poco was on it. And Dan Fogelberg, before anybody knew about Dan Fogelberg, was on it. And it was just fun. The way it went down, but they don't make records like that anymore, is we all met in Colorado. It was recorded in Colorado. And we got in this little studio, and no one had heard the tunes. And I would sit in the middle of the room with an acoustic guitar, and they'd all sit around me. And I'd play the song like 3 times. And some of them would make notes, and some of them would do this. And then it would be, okay, let's cut it. And everybody would go back to their instruments, count it off, do it. After 3 or 4 times, that's what you end up with.
Your Michael Stanley was John Lee Hooker. That's the way John Lee Hooker would do it. 3 times, let's get it going.
Which is 2 more times than Dylan does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I dig it. Let's put you back in that time frame if we can. For Let's Get the Show on the Road.
Let's get the show on the roadway. Let the curtain take 'em by. New Haven, just a rendezvous to take you to a lover who was then but never now. Susan played the lady. Gonna call the players song. Just a figurine, a stage and reveries. It's up and coming, can't be that wrong. And today's for sale, and it's all you can afford. Buy your own admission, the whole thing's got you bored. And the Lord uses the good ones, the bad ones use the Lord. Thank you. Then it goes on for like 7 minutes.
You know, Michael Stanley's a tease, isn't he? And by the way, I want to thank Jimmy Markovich and the folks from Jam Sound for supplying the sound tonight. Thank you, Jimmy. You're doing a great job. Let's hear it for Jimmy back
There's
there.
another continuous thing.
Yeah.
The Markovich family and Jam Sound have been, completely tied with me since the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, there hasn't been a time that MSB or any of these things together when Jam Sound and the Markovich guys were not around, and it's been a hell of a ride. So thanks, Jimmy. I appreciate it.
Nice job, Jimmy. We're going to cut to 1980 right now, and all of a sudden, this album comes out by the name of Heartland. And that was it. I mean, you guys were on MTV, selling out everywhere. it was a huge, huge time for Michael Stanley and the Michael Stanley Band.
It started to be what we thought it should have been all along, or what we had hoped it would have been. And it was weird because you may have heard the story before, but we were all but broken up at that point. We didn't have a record company. We had done 4 or 5 albums, whatever it was, 6 albums, I guess. And pretty much thought that was the end of the road. So we decided to do one more record. We did it on our own. We paid for it. We produced it for the first time by ourselves. We figured if we're going to go out, let's do the record we want to do, the way we want to do it, without any interference. And if that's it, that's it. So we did it, and then we said, well, we may as well shop it around just to make sure. And all of a sudden, for the first time, we had like a bidding war, which was a unique situation to be in. And EMI was the label that bought it. And the other great thing was, because when a record company signs somebody, they're usually excited about it for one reason or another.
Right.
But say they sign Cornel, and they go, we're excited. Cornel's the next big blues phenomena. And everybody at the record company's excited. You come in, they say, they do the whole thing. They wine you and dine you. And then you go away for a year and a half to work on your record. And when you come back,
they forgot.
They're excited about somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Well,
and then you're in the cutout band.
Yeah, the cool thing was that we had this record all done, everything. And so they were excited about it. We gave them the record, and instead of it being a year and a half lag, it was out on the street in about, a month and a half. And the other great thing was that MTV had just started at that point. And EMI was willing to do a video for it, where I was also lucky enough to meet my wife, which was a nice occurrence there. But at that point, you could have given MTV anything and they would have played it. They had nothing to play. They had like 9 things, right? So we were in hot rotation on MTV with He Can't Love You. And it all worked out real well.
Thank God for the man who put the white lines on the highway. A line, according to Michael Stanley, was written driving back from many hazy nights in Youngstown to Cleveland.
It was written after a show at the, whatever it was called at the time, since it's
Tomorrow Club,
changed,
Agora, Star Theater.
It changed names every time you came there. I think I pretty much think of it as the Tomorrow Club more than anything. But it was one of those things, you get done at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and we have to drive back to Cleveland, and by the time we get in the road, it's 3 o'clock. You hit the turnpike in one of those great Ohio snowstorms where the snow's coming directly at you, that sort of thing, and you think you're tripping, and it's like. And I can remember sitting in the passenger seat in the van, the equipment van, and being scared to death because there was just no things. And finally there was we went under a bridge and there was no snow there for a minute. And I can remember saying, thank God for the man who put the white lines on the highway, because then now we know at least we're on the road. It's something in my mind said, remember that.
Yeah,
remember.
that was a good one
That's
to remember.
That's a good line.
Good one to remember.
Yeah, so...
That of course belongs to a just classic Michael Stanley song called Lover, and if you please would, sir, if you could give us a little bit of that song.
Well, the glow from bars and 1,000 stars like the cold Ohio night, and the turnpike slick, the snow's as thick as thieves. Since your call came through, ain't nothing new. The radio and the headlights and the news at the top of the hour that no one really believes. Do they love her? What you want to go do that for? Love her? Why'd you want to tear it apart? Baby, love her. You say you got your reasons, but I need more. Love her. Give me back my heart. And it didn't hurt either. It didn't hurt that we got Clarence Clemons to play saxophone on that too. So
and nice segue there, radio guy. Yeah. How did you get Clarence Clemons involved? I mean, how did that? Because it really added the bite to the record with his saxophone playing.
It's one of those careful what you ask for things. We were, as I said, we were producing the record ourselves. And Jimmy Fox, who is you may know him, he was the drummer in the James Gang. He wasn't playing anymore, and he was working for Belkin Productions, our management company, and he was sort of overseeing our recording process. And at one point, after we did the track, we were talking about it, and I said, you know what, I really hear a saxophone on this. And this is before we had a saxophone player in the band. And he said, in Jimmy's own inimitable fashion, he said, well, if you could have anyone in the world, who would you have? And I said, Clarence Clemons. This is a Clarence Clemons type thing. Mm-hmm. He goes, okay. And that was the end of the discussion. And about a day later, he came back into the studio and he said, Clarence will be here on Wednesday. I said, Clarence who, you know? He said, Clarence Clemons. I go, you're kidding. And I go, how did that happen? He goes, well, all they can say is no. She said, I called them up. I called the management company up, see if Clarence wanted, and they happened to be on a break in a tour. See, this is how all these things work. Clarence had a girlfriend in Cleveland at the time. So a trip to Cleveland was not going to be a horrible thing for him. You go pick up a little money, do a little thing, you know?
Exactly,
So Clarence comes in. He's a great guy. It was the first time I met him. He was a great guy. But before he came in, see, we're the producers now, so we're in charge, right? And so all of a sudden it was like, well, what if Clarence sucks, you know? I mean, who's going to tell him? Who's going to tell him that it's not any good? Who's going to tell him, hey, could you do that again one more time, please? You know?
You're doing real good on the Bruce records, but you don't cut it for me.
Right. Because we had run into this before. At one point, on the record before, he didn't suck, by the way, as you could tell. But our producer, we said we wanted a sax on something on the Greatest Hits album. And he said, oh, I know the guy who's the lead trumpet player sax player on The Tonight Show. Well, you know, a great band The Tonight Show had.
Sure.
He got him Ernie Watts. And so he calls Ernie Watts, you know, and now Ernie's, you know, he's a session player. They get scale, they get union scale, whatever it is. But if you're a really hot session player, you get 2 or 3 times scale on this sort of thing. So Ernie was like in the 3 times scale thing. Ernie came in, you knew right from the get-go, he had no interest in being here whatsoever, you know. And he went out and we played the song for him like once or twice. He went out in the studio, blew one solo on the thing and started packing up his sax. And it was like, and this was like, that sucked. That was horrible. You know, we're playing triple scale for this, you know? And it was one of those things where you had to go, oh, could you do it again? And he was very offended that someone would want him to do it again. But, you know, that's the name of the game, you know? So.
Well, here's the ultimate, one of the ultimate, I feel, Michael Stanley trivia questions. Billy Joel, John Mellencamp, AC/DC. What do they have in common? All members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's Billy Joel, John Mellencamp, AC/DC. All of them have opened for Michael Stanley. In fact, AC/DC has opened for Michael Stanley 3 times.
This is true.
And here is the greatest story. 1977, Michael Stanley Band is playing in Akron. There's a gentleman by the name of Billy Joel out who has a record, The Piano Man. And all of a sudden, he's got to open for Michael Stanley. And he's being paid. And supposedly, Billy Joel trashes the dressing room because he's upset because he's got to open for a regional guy. True or false?
He was very upset. Mellencamp was very upset. Of course, that was when he was John Cougar. So, you know, but
yeah,
it's how John is, you know. And AC/DC, they didn't care at all. They were great, you know. They were... But the interesting thing was, you know, back at the same time, Cheap Trick, REO Speedwagon, all those people we opened for us. And it was amazing because as soon as somebody opened for us, within like 2 months, they had like a #1 record. Mellencamp opened for us, all of a sudden, Jack and Diane, you know. I remember Billy Joel, literally 2 months later, Just the Way You Are. Or
right.
Thing. And he's huge and giant.
The Stranger came out right after that, sure.
Yeah, but it was, I mean, that's just the way it works. I mean, you go around, and I remember when we first signed with Epic, our first label, Cheap Trick had just signed with them also. And Cheap Trick's one of my favorite bands. They're great guys, and I really love them. But they sent us out on a promotional tour, playing shows. You know, like when they would hook up with your radio station and do a cheap show, and you could sell tickets for a buck or whatever. But every night we'd switch. You know, Cheap Trick would headline one night, we would headline the next night, this and that. And it wasn't combative. It wasn't like, it was just like, oh, that's the way it is. You know, you looked at it like, oh, I only have to play 45 minutes tonight as opposed to I have to play an hour and a half or whatever. But some people, I can remember opening for REO Speedwagon, and it said in our contract we were supposed to play 45 minutes as the opening act, which is about what those were back then. And at 45 minutes, we were in the middle of the last song. And their road manager just went over and took the giant plug that controlled everything and pulled it out of the wall. And that's the end of the show, you know? It's like, they're not a nice group, REO.
We talked about, the great memories of Blossom and of the Front Row Theater and of the Coliseum. And those are fun memories because they come to top of mind really quick. What I love asking musicians, though, what is the worst gig that you ever played?
Absolutely, no question about it.
And see, everyone remembers right away. Everyone, B.B. King could be sitting here. It doesn't matter who is sitting here. You ask them their worst gig, go.
We got asked to do the Jeff Beck tour in 1980. It was right after Blow by Blow came out.
Right.
And, we were all big Jeff Beck fans from all different sorts of, from the Yardbirds, from this, from that, everybody. We thought, great, we're going out with somebody that we actually want to stay after the show and watch their set. So we started in Florida, and the first show, we were pretty big in Florida, so the first show was okay. People were like, cool. Jeff was a great band, Simon Phillips and all these guys. We started moving up north. Every show got a little weirder. To break it down, people hated us. I mean, hated us. Because here was Jeff, it was all instrumental. It was a fusion show. And here's us, doing our 4-part harmonies and rock and roll and this and that. They did not want to hear this at all. All that we were doing was standing between them and Jeff Beck, And it was like, dude, it's only like a half hour. Just chill. He'll be here. It got to the point, it got so violent. People were throwing things. People were...
Nice.
That Jeff would come out and introduce us and say, like, these are my good friends, Please treat them kindly. Then they'd throw something at Jeff, and like, literally after about we did 12 shows and we were heading back up and we were about ready to go into New York City, and we said we can't go into New York City with this, and this is the meanest place on earth. What will they do to us in New York City? We had set the set so all the songs ran together. There was no break.
None.
So that you didn't have a chance to boo, And in this is the honest to God truth, the last show we did before New York City was up in Binghamton, New York. We all wore football helmets on stage. Because it was the thing like, we're going to get killed. I mean, Kevin got hit in the head with a bottle and everybody else with keys. So Michael Gismondi, our great bass player who's from Youngstown, we said we can't go into New York. So we called Belkin, our management, and said, you got to get us out of this gig. It's just going to be ugly. So he comes up with a thing that, Giz has a heart murmur, and, so we can't go. Giz is going, no, I don't want a heart murmur. We go, Giz, now you're not really giving you a heart murmur. You're just saying you have a heart murmur.
So that was the heart murmur time.
That was heart murmur time.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's pictures of us in T-shirts that say, I survived the Jeff Beck tour of 1980. That's what it is.
Well, you said about the Michael Stanley Band, and contrary to all the rumors and gossip on the street that people like to bend stories so many different ways, this is directly what you feel about the band. We broke up not because we didn't like each other, but because we couldn't survive. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was like a group divorce. You still get along with these guys. There's no bad blood, and I don't know how that rumor all started that you guys didn't like each other. And
well, anytime a band breaks up, especially when it seems to the public at least like you're, relatively happening.
Yeah.
Because we were still huge here.
Right.
So that's all what people here were going on. But it wasn't. Excuse me. I had about 13 people on the payroll every week. And everybody got paid, the band, the road crew, everybody got paid 52 weeks a year. Against the judgment of all sorts of people. They said, this is not the way you do it. You know, if you're not working, nobody gets paid. And I said, no, I want these guys. And if I want them, I got to pay them. Excuse me. So it just got to the point where we couldn't financially do it anymore. And I didn't want to see the band just go downhill. So we decided to go out with a couple shows at the front row.
Right.
And that turned into, those sold out in like minutes, and then it turned into like, I think, 14 nights. But if you saw the band in those 14 nights, you saw the band the best as it was. Everybody just, you know, they could have gone through the motions, but it was like, you know what, we're going out guns blazing here. And those were the best shows we ever did, you know. But no, I still see everybody. Kevin just came to the House of Blues over the holidays. I couldn't get him to come on stage, but he came and you know, stood on the side of the stage the whole night and everything. And a lot of the other guys I still play with. So,
well, we have Michael Stanley solo. We have Michael Stanley and the Resonators. We have the Michael Stanley Band. But if you guys ever hear this name, make sure you go see this band. They are called the Midlife Chryslers. And the Midlife Chryslers, and the best way I can describe it, is they're like the traveling Wilburys. And this is Mike Chrysler, ladies and gentlemen. Meet Mike Chrysler. And name the other Chrysler, sort of like the Ramones.
it is. There's Mark Lee Chrysler, and Tommy Chrysler, and
Okay.
Rodney Chrysler, and Bob Chrysler, and Gary Chrysler, and Paul Chrysler. And we decided we just weren't able to play enough as Michael Stanley. You know, we can only play around here 2 or 3 times a year. And as far as we can get on weekends now, because everybody's got a real job these days. So it's a different sort of situation. So a bunch of us decided, you know, we want to play. That's what we do. That's why we got into this, was to play. So Mark Lee Shannon and Rodney Syke and I put together a little trio. And we went and played a bar in Akron for the Door, you know. And the whole idea was, you know, we didn't rehearse once, and we could do no Michael Stanley songs. Those were the only 2 rules. And this thing sort of started gaining momentum, and then people started to come and sit in with us and never leave. And all of a sudden, it's from a 3-piece band, it's like an 8-piece band now, you know. But we just go around and we play clubs, and we do blues stuff and you know, stone stuff and all sorts of things. And it's just to do it to have fun, because it brought me back. It feels like when I started. It feels like the only thing missing is my dad's car. You know, instead of putting my equipment in my dad's car, I'm putting it in my car. And you're going to a club, and you're playing, and you're not getting paid much at all, and you're sweating for 4 hours, and you remember, this is why I started. This is the fun of it.
The Midlife Chryslers coming to a town near you. Michael, we got to wrap, but I want you to play a little bit more from one more song off the new record. And Throwing Shadows is a duet.
Right.
And on the record. But once again, folks, the lyrics are something like this. And you've been taking me for granted, taking everything I had. And I'm wondering how a love like this could wind up quite so sad. I know everything's good on the home front there, Michael. You know, I know Denise. Everything's good there. You know, what's that? I mean,
it's just, you know, that was one that came from the title first. I don't know where I heard it, or came up with it, but the title, Throwing Shadows, and it just sort of painted a picture to me about a relationship that was just sort of a shadow of what it used to be. So there's lots of ways you do songs. People say, they come up all the time and say, how do you write a song? And I say, any possible way you can, you write a song. You know, beg, borrow, steal. Whether it comes from a drum beat, whether it comes from a lyric, whether it comes from a chord progression, you do it any way you can. And I've done it every way you can. I've written songs in 15 minutes. I've had a song that I've labored for 8 years over, you know, before I felt it was what I wanted it to be. So you get them wherever you can. Somebody, you know, you might say something here tonight, and, you know, it's like the white lines on the highway thing. You might say something, and I'll pretend like I'm still talking to you, but in my mind I'm going, ooh, file that
log
back
it in there, right?
Yeah, there was. You may have heard the story. If you have a minute, I can tell you.
We do.
There's a song. There's a song on I think the Coming Up for Air album, which was my first solo album after the band broke up, I think. And it's a song called "Send Away Underwear," and I thought, first of all, I got to be the first guy to put underwear in the title of a song, right? But I was pretty proud about that. But like the way it came about, I was going to work one day, and when I left home, I would pick up the mail. It had a long driveway, and the mail was up, the street. Pick up the mail, put it in the car, went to the BP station, filling up the gas, and I'm just looking through the mail, while the gas is going. And there's a Victoria's Secret catalog. So, I'm a red-blooded American male. I'm going to look through the Victoria's Secret catalog. Something I would have paid $500 for when I was 13 years old if I'd have had $500. But there's a guy next to me leaning up against his pickup truck, and he goes, "What you got there?" I said, What? He goes, "What you reading?" And I, show him the cover, and he goes, "Hey, that's one of them send-away underwear catalogs, right?" And the same, this went boom. I go, "I don't know what I'm doing with it, but that's the title, and I'm going to do that, So that's they come like that. That's
Throw a little bit at us of.
Are you going to sing the Jennifer part?
No, I we'll leave that alone. But it's a beautiful part. In fact, setting it up a little bit more, it reminded me of Kid Rock, Sheryl Crow in Picture, sort of like that kind of play between two artists.
Well, I always wanted to do. Jennifer and I have been singing together for so long, and she's just a great singer, and I'm not an easy person to harmonize with, and she's mastered that over the years. But I said, we got to give her something that's a little more featuring her, so it's actually I'm out of the way and she's singing. So decided to do the duet, and if I can remember what her words are in the duet, since I didn't have to learn those. There used to be a time you'd hang on every word I'd say, but that was long ago now, before the world got in the way. And I remember when you touched me, it would bring me to my knees. But that was long ago now, and I'm afraid I'm about to freeze. This isn't what I wanted, to leave this love for dead. But baby, we're drowning in over our heads. We're just throwing shadows. We're just throwing shadows. See, I tell you, you have to go out and buy the record to hear the rest of it, but you already got one, so there you go.
Well, I want to thank once again the folks from Jam, the folks from the Cellar for letting us come in and steal their place tonight. Greg and Jim and Jen from Armstrong for making us look pretty. And our studio audience. You guys did really good. Did you enjoy yourself? Yeah, very good.
Thank you guys for coming out, and thank you for all your support over the years. This has always been one of our favorite places down here in Y-Town, and we hope we'll see you back here soon.
How about one more time for Michael Stanley, folks? And for Armstrong and Counterpoint, I'm Cornel Bogdan. Peace.
Never will, 'cause the boys are out on Mayfield. Everybody dressed to kill. Some of them got their reasons, no, some of them just got time. Some think about last season, about a life of crime. And they say, hey baby, gonna gonna have a time tonight. Hey darling, would you like a ride? The girl says maybe, I got a little time to kill, and baby you feel like trying. You're just like flying, but nobody writes the names down. Just something they gotta go through. Yeah, nothing ever seems to work out the way they planned. Some of them think about leaving, not many of them really do. Give you one more try tonight, yeah. In the heartland, in the heartland. On 105th midnight, brothers choose some sides. Talks for ladies, long clean rides. While out on the west side sparks flying. Oh my, when the rich boys come around. Yes, we're gonna leave it alone. Even though the glory bound. And they say, hey baby, we're gonna have a time tonight. Hey darling, would you like a ride? And the girl says maybe, I got a little time to kill, and baby you feel like trying. Like flying, but nobody writes the names down. Just something that they gotta go through. Yeah, nothing ever seems to work out the way they planned. Some of them think about leaving, not many of them really do. Give you one more try tonight, yeah. In the heartland, in the heartland, in the heartland. In the heartland, in the heartland. Thank you. I think I'll leave you with this one just because I think it's like I was talking about before, and I think it's important to try to remain. We all. A lot of bad stuff going around these days for the last God knows how many years. It's easy to get real depressed about it, but most of the time if you stop and really look at what you got going on, you got a lot of good things going on in your life. Your friends, your family, hopefully your job, things you like to do, whatever. And we kind of forget about a lot of that stuff and realize that, even with this, we're better off than 95% of the people that are walking on the face of the earth today. So. But this is about taking stock of that and planning what you'd like to do on your last day on earth. On my last day on earth, think I'm gonna stay out late. Maybe head down the Avalon, watch the sun come up over the lake. On my last day on earth, I really ought to make me some calls. Tell some people some things I forgot. I don't know if it'll matter at all. All I know is my time's coming. For all I'm worth, I just wanna be with you on my last day on earth. On my last day on earth, I'm eating anything I please. Walk my dogs one last time. Wonder how they're gonna be on my last day on earth. I wanna feel all I can Take out the car for one last drive, crank up some jungle land. All I know is my time's coming. Gonna hold on for all I'm worth. I just wanna be with you on my last day on earth. And I'm keeping this heart on fire right till the final call. 'Cause if I hadn't, I wouldn't have found a love like yours at all. On my last day on earth, I'm hoping my kids can tell how they meant everything to me, and I hope that I taught them well. On my last day on earth, just won't be enough time to count all of my blessings. Thank God for these friends of mine. All I know is my time's coming. Gonna hold on for all I'm worth. I just wanna be with you on my last day on earth. On my last day on earth. On my last day on earth. Thank you, folks. Drive carefully.